think I'll call a meeting to order, Jess? Yes? Okay. Welcome everyone to council meeting number 52 here on Tuesday, December 14th at 6:30 p.m. As we gear up for the holidays, we hope everyone is in the Christmas spirit and getting ready for whatever is before us in the coming weeks. I'd like to welcome North, our elf, courtesy of the Chamber of Commerce. He's been making the rounds to lots of local businesses. He's doing it safely with a lovely and well-fitted mask on. So we welcome North. I would advise council colleagues, please do not touch North or you will break the magic spell of shopping local. And we all know how important and cherished that is at this time of year. And if North feels the need to assert himself in any way during the council meeting, I'm sure he'll make himself known. Apart from that, before I start this evening, I would like to recognize that in just I think a few short weeks, we'll be saying goodbye to Cheryl DeVries of Granville campus, who announced her retirement. And Cheryl has been with Granville campus really since the council acquired, or the municipality rather, acquired the 626-acre property back in 2018. And in fact, she served with the campus, obviously under Granville College, which was being managed by the University of Guelph. And then in the crucial transition years between 2016, both Cheryl and Pat were very significant to the transition of the Granville College property to the municipality. So we had an opportunity earlier today to recognize the efforts of Cheryl, Ms. DeVries, as well as Pat Ramier, who is staying affiliated with the Granville campus to support some apprenticeship work. But I did want to take this opportunity to recognize their tremendous effort and service over a period of quite a bit of change and transition on behalf of the campus and the municipality. They have been the core employees up until very recently, aside some crucial maintenance staff at the Granville campus. So Cheryl will be missed, and we thank her very much for her efforts, alongside Pat Ramier, though Pat is sticking around a bit longer, and we are grateful for that. So with that in mind, I'll move to approval of the agenda. Council colleagues, you see it before you. Can I look to a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Barkley, thank you. Councillor O'Sullivan, and maybe North, our special elf, will help me to see all the heads over as I look above the screens on everyone's desks. I will call the question on the agenda as amended this evening. All in favor? Good. This, of course, colleagues, if I'm not mistaken, is our last meeting for 2021. A tumultuous period it has been, with lots of ups and downs. But of course, council has continued to meet under many different conditions. But it appears to be our last meeting so far, unless we have to come together in a way that's unexpected. So with that in mind, we have an agenda. We have no presentations or delegations this evening. We have nothing on the consent agenda, remarkably. We are not reviewing minutes of previous meetings this evening, so we will go straight to the context and substance of the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee. That's a committee that we've been eager to establish, and we have wanted to appoint some members for some time. And I know tourism in this community is certainly something that is talked about regularly, and we've already put some steps into action, including the retention of a tourism coordinator who's been exceptional at, I think, energizing and animating conversations and dialogues and moving forward with some plans. So we welcome Mr. Gilmore for that presentation.
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. So as you mentioned, we're here tonight to discuss the appointment of members to the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee. On April 29th, 2021, Council approved the establishment of the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee under the Community and Economic Development Advisory Committee, better known as CDAC. On October 5th, 2021, Council approved the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee terms of reference. Council recommended that the subcommittee be made up of 3 to 5 tourism operators with direct involvement in serving visitors. A call for volunteers to apply to the subcommittee was issued on October 25th, 2021, and was advertised in both the NG Times and the municipality's website. On December 6, 2021, the Community and Economic Development Advisory Committee met to recommend a member of CDAC to be appointed to the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee. The Old Town Council BIA and North Granville Chamber of Commerce have also both nominated individuals for Council's consideration to be appointed to the subcommittee. In accordance with the procedural bylaw and terms of reference, a Council resolution is required to appoint members to the subcommittee. Council is also responsible for selecting a member of Council to sit on the subcommittee. Members of the subcommittee will be selected during a closed session later tonight, and applicants will be notified over the next couple of weeks. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Thank you, Mr. Gilmore. Any questions, colleagues? I'm assuming, Mr. Gilmore, that the call for applicants for the Tourism Advisory Subcommittee was fulsome, that a number of different people stepped up. I know we'll be dealing with that and closed a bit later.
Yes, that's correct. I believe we received 4 applicants.
4 applications. And
Yeah.
what's the total size of the committee?
It would be 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Members of, so just a second, I'll go through the exact number. So the maximum of 5 and a minimum of 3 local tourism businesses, 1 member of council, 1 member of the Community and Economic Development Advisory Committee, 1 member of the Old Town Council Business Improvement Area Board of Management, and 1 member of the North Granville Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors.
Okay. And have those other entities selected their candidates yet?
Yes, they have.
Okay. So tonight, after we have that opportunity to review applicants, then the committee will be fully constituted, subject to approval in January?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. I know they're eager to get going.
Yes,
so,
for sure.
So I think it's they will welcome and embrace the opportunity with open arms. Okay. Anything else, Councillor O'Sullivan?
Thank you, Mayor Peckford. I just wonder, just want to clarify. So there's a representative from the Old Town Kemptville BIA, 1 from the Chamber of Commerce, 1 from Council, 1 from CDAC, and then the other 3 to 5 are additional members?
Yes, they would
then?
be local tourism operators.
Okay, I just wondered, the campus may be considered a tourism destination as well as Ferguson Forest. I know Ferguson Forest already is a big destination for people coming from Ottawa. I just wondered if it would be a good idea to have a representative from the campus and Ferguson Forest on this committee.
Yes, thank you for the question. That was discussed at CDAC at our last meeting, and it was talked about and recommended that they definitely attend the meetings as needed. It wasn't recommended at that point that they be a voting member, but that's definitely something that I guess we could consider.
Mr. Dyke, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Further to Mr. Gilmore's comments, I think one of the things to keep in mind with the Tourism Committee is there can be subcommittees, special focus groups that work with these committees, so we get in areas that where, while they may be considered for the Ferguson Forest Center, for the campus at that level as well, so that would be part of the decision of the committee itself going forward. I guess the goal is, as presented by Mr. Gilmore previously, is to keep the committee at a manageable size with appropriate inputs. So that will allow the committee to make those amongst themselves to how they leverage those points into the committee as it moves forward.
Councillor O'Sullivan, anything further? No.
Well, I understand your thinking. I think it would be very helpful to build relationships and to work together towards tourism destinations if there was representatives from the Ferguson Forest Committee on this. As much as BIA and the Chamber of Commerce, I think BIA and the Chamber of Commerce would be the beneficiaries of a coordinated effort between the Ferguson Forest Center and the campus. But that's my thoughts, my opinion.
Okay, other comments, colleagues? Seeing none, maybe we can provide that feedback, Councillor Sullivan, further, right, once the committee is constituted, in the event that there is a need for more formal representation at the time. Okay, I'll look for a mover and a seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Barclay, Deputy Mayor. Okay. I certainly appreciate that Ferguson Forest is an excellent destination, as is the campus. So lots to work with, there's no doubt. So this motion is just to receive the presentation and to consider the appointments of members in closed session on January 11th, and to report the appointments, rather, that are made this evening in closed session, to report those appointments, and I think solidify those appointments on January 11th. I will call the question. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay. Next, I believe we are hearing from the Office of the CEO when it comes to the Granville Campus Reserve Fund transfer. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Worship. Before you is a report, is a request from the board of directors from the Granville campus for a reserve transfer in the amount of $500,000. This money will actually bridge the board to be able to cover their operational costs until the tenant rents come in for the campus over the first quarter of 2022. As we go through the year and as the rents come in, monies will be transferred back to the reserve over the reconciled at the end of the year. This is the purpose of the reserve, why it was established over time, and it's important for to note that the transfer will not impact municipal operation funds, be it by the municipal tax rate and or our municipal operational or capital reserves.
And indeed, this is the Granville Campus Reserve Fund.
That's correct.
That was independently established back in 2018. So there's no draw on municipal resources, even temporarily. Is that the case?
That's correct.
Okay, excellent. Colleagues, any other questions on this matter? Councillor Barclay?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to the CAO. I'm just curious, we'll be, in the new year, we'll be discussing a reserve fund strategy. Is that my understanding?
That's correct, Councillor.
And again, I think we want to be clear, this is the Granville Campus Reserve Fund that was established in 2018 upon the sale of 7 acres to the French Public Board. So the dollars here have always been dedicated to the Campus Reserve Fund. There was no crossover between municipal funds and the Campus Reserve Fund, except for the fact that the municipality has held all the campus funds within its own accounts as a dedicated reserve. So appreciate that as the campus transitions to independent financial systems, they're asking to draw on their own reserve in order to help bridge that gap. I'll look for a mover and a seconder then. Thank you. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barclay. And if there are no further questions, I don't see any, I will call the question. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Good. Thank you. That motion is carried, and I know campus board members will be happy to see that we facilitated that request on their behalf. Okay, so with that in mind, I believe we are now going to hear from the Office of the Clerk, is that right? Ms. Workman, and in regards to the accessibility update and Municipality of North Granville's multi-year accessibility plan, 2021 to 2025. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Each year, the municipality must provide council an update with respect to accessibility. This year, we're able to present the Municipality of North Granville Multi-Year Accessibility Plan 2021 to 2025, in addition to the update. The Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act 2005 is a law that sets out a process for the development and enforcement of accessibility standards to ensure that all Ontarians have fair and equitable access to programs and services, and to improve opportunities for persons with disabilities. Ontario was the first province to enact specific legislation establishing a goal and time frame for accessibility. The AODA requires that the municipality provide a multi-year accessibility plan and post the plan to the municipal website, and that the Municipality provide council with a yearly update with respect to initiatives to remove barriers. This year, we are also required to submit the 2021 Accessibility Compliance Report by December 31st, 2021. The municipality is committed to providing a barrier-free environment for all, and as such, the multi-year plan outlines the policies, achievements, actions, and goals of the municipality. In creating the Municipality of North Granville Accessibility Multi-Year Plan, the Department of Legislative Services reviewed previous multi-year accessibility plans and applicable legislation, solicited feedback from each department, issued a community survey on behalf of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, collaborated with the Accessibility Advisory Committee, and collaborated with the Communications Department for design to ensure accessibility and AODA compliance. The Department of Legislative Services will also forward the approved plan to CNIB for further accessibility features and review. Although the COVID-19 pandemic created new barriers and limitations with respect to accessibility, it also created new opportunity. Ontario Regulation 191.11, Integrated Accessibility Standards, provides 5 standards within the AODA: customer service, information and communication, employment, transportation, and built environment. Over the past year, the Directors of Finance and Legislative Services had the opportunity to consult with the CNIB. Staff are investigating options available as a result of this consultation, such as counter loops that will loop into hearing aids, website translators, embedded video, closed captioning for council meetings, on-demand video, remote interpretation services, and clear masks, just to name a few. Staff are also seeking to allow for hybrid meetings here in council chambers. The chat feature has also been enabled for virtual meetings. Updates to information and communication include creating a style and creating accessible documents guide for staff, including accessibility provisions for the 2022 election through various technology and respective post-election reporting. The municipal website continues to comply with AODA standards. The municipality also requests that, wherever possible, third-party entities submit documents in accessible format. Specifically, to current employees, the municipality has provided a training session with respect to the style and creating accessible documents guide, with second training session scheduled in January, followed by a roundtable in-person session in February for any staff seeking additional training. The municipality will continue to advertise availability of accommodation during the recruitment process and continue to provide accommodation where needed. The municipality also provided accessible transportation in 2021, and staff are investigating viable options for future transportation requirements. Residents of the municipality will also see that renovations will begin shortly to permanently provide customer service on the ground floor of the Municipal Center. The Department of Planning and Development is currently developing guidelines for subdivision and site plans, which will include accessible features and considerations. This past year has also seen many additional accessibility features with respect to parks, such as the recently announced Riverside Park redesign, and play structures and services in areas such as Glen Gables. Discussion has also ensued with the Accessibility Advisory Committee to seek options to provide accessibility at South Gore Park soccer fields and solutions for railings in arenas. The municipality is committed to accessibility and preventing barriers and will continue to address accessibility barriers as staff become aware in order to create a safe, cohesive community for all residents. The Accessibility Advisory Committee will continue to advocate for accessibility and ensure that the municipality continues to uphold the standard of addressing accessible requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to see this plan come forward. So we appreciate all the efforts. And Councillor O'Sullivan and I sit on the Municipal Accessibility Advisory Committee, and I sit on the United Counties Accessibility Advisory Committee. So these are definitely important spaces and places where we get to talk about various efforts, initiatives, et cetera. Councillor O'Sullivan, is there anything you would like to ask or add in terms of the report that's come to Council this evening?
No, I don't think I have anything to add right now. I really appreciate all the work that the Clerk's Department, you and Heather and everyone else has done for this. It's a really important document that we have, and moving forward with this and we've already accomplished quite a bit of it. So this is great. Thank you.
I know that later this week we'll be coming out with an announcement on, of course, renewing the municipality's efforts to provide accessible transportation to the community. So as council is aware, we've made some changes, I think, to increase ridership and to ensure that there aren't any barriers that would prevent someone from availing of accessible transportation. If I could just speak quickly, Jess, Ms. Workman, to the website. Where are we, do you have any sense of where we're at in that process of transitioning our website over to kind of a fully accessible format? I recognize it's very complex, right? Especially if you have a website that may be built on an older platform. Do you know where that's at?
I actually cannot speak to that. I do know that we are in compliance with AODA and that we have started the process of updating the website. I'm not sure of the timeline.
And in developing the plan, obviously the significant relocation of our reception area, right, from sort of a second floor to a first floor, obviously negates the use of elevators or stairs. Are there other features of the downstairs relocation that help in terms of accessibility? I don't know, Mr. Dyke, if you can answer that. Is it really mostly about visibility and ease of use when you come into the building?
A little bit of both. So, Your Worship, so the redesign of the downstairs, which basically puts the information center in the main lobby, will address the accessibility issues around the counter space. The height of counter will be addressed through that as well. So the temporary counter will be replaced with a permanent counter that takes into account the accessibility elements.
And you're talking about things like desk heights and
That's
all
correct.
the things that one would have to do to accommodate someone who's in a wheelchair or
correct.
using a mobility
That's correct.
device. Okay. Colleagues, I'm so sorry. Is there anyone else who'd like to ask a question on this one? Okay. Appreciate the efforts and look forward to monitoring and hopefully making some advancements, especially when it comes to things like railings in the arena, which I know have been a longstanding ask. And when it comes to South Gore Park, we did hear from a couple of families where there was a parent who was mobility impaired and wasn't able to reach the soccer fields to watch their kid play. And I'm very hopeful that with the work of Parks and Rec, we can overcome some of those barriers. That it may seem small, but I think for the families that are affected and the teammates of that family, I think, really demonstrating that the municipality cares and can work to support full accessibility for even the little things, which are really, in many respects, the big things when you're raising children or involved in the life of your grandchildren. I think they're really quite important. So I look forward to some of the next steps. Councillor Strakian?
Yes, I'm just wondering, I was researching some of the accessibility stuff in preparation for tonight, and I came across communication boards as they allow for accessibility for kids with, for example, autism. And when we look at the redesign of Riverside Park, I'm wondering if that has come up at all, either at the advisory committee or through your discussions in general for the municipality.
Through Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Strecker. And I don't think specifically, but we can refer that to Mr. Guy, and we can have a discussion on what elements and engage the Accessibility Committee on those design elements as we go forward.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That would be very wise. I think that's a great question, Councillor Strakian. And when we think about design guidelines for subdivisions, as that was being highlighted, Mr. Dyke, I think we're also talking about sort of sidewalks, right, that allow for ease of use and other features, right, of, I guess, both roadways and multi-use pathways and sidewalks that are so important if you are mobility impaired. Is that what you understand from the design guidelines?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. It would entail all of that and then some. I think what we need to do as we go forward, as we're into our design elements, be it trails, be it buildings, public spaces, that be a core component of our design. There are some amazing places in municipalities regarding picnic tables, on trail systems regarding physical fitness things that allow people with certain levels of ability challenges to participate in them, as well as something I forwarded to you the other day, Your Worship. The City of Syracuse, New York actually puts charging stations for mobility devices right in the downtown core. So things along that nature. So I guess the short way of saying is we want to expand it to encompass all of that at the design phase, obviously within financial constraints that we have, but I think we should look at it on a broad spectrum instead of really focus on just physical elements.
Yeah, I think that would be fabulous, and our community is changing and evolving so quickly, and certainly there are significant constituencies where if you're part of an older population, inevitably at some point you may know someone or be someone who is themselves affected by a mobility constraint. So I really appreciate sort of thinking outside the box in how we can serve residents over the long term, especially in a community where we've had a lot of older infrastructure that hasn't been well suited. So great to hear. Thank you, Councillor Sullivan. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to bring to your attention that the Ferguson Forest Centre Corporation, the Trails Committee, is putting in a grant application from Trillium, I believe, to make the Turtle Trail or a portion of the Turtle Trail accessible, as well as the path through the Arboretum accessible, and a labyrinth in there. So there is a grant application going forward for that, and we had the Accessibility Advisory Committee join us on a walk there and get their input on what was required.
Awesome. That's great news. Councillor O'Sullivan, would you like to move adoption of the report? I should say receive the report titled Accessibility Update for the Municipality of North Granville's Multi-Year Accessibility Plan. Approve the Municipality of North Granville's Multi-Year Accessibility Plan, which will be posted on the municipal website, and direct the clerk to submit the 2021 Accessibility Compliance Report to the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility in accordance with Ontario regulations. Councillor Sullivan, you'll move that? Councillor Strachan, you'll second. Beautiful, thank you. If there's no further comments, I will call the vote. All in favor, please. Thank you. Thanks so much. That carries. Next, we are going to hear from Mr. Dyke, is it, on the appointments to fill advisory committee vacancies? Or is that someone else?
No, that, Worship, that's just it's a formality for council going into the closed session to deal with the appointments as first identified. Okay,
excellent. So as the committee is aware, there's a number of vacancies on other committees, not just the tourism committee, which is obviously newly established, and council, you'll recall that later this evening we're going into close to consider those applications. Good, so then we'll move on to Ms. Dunlop, are you doing the presentation? And this is the Granville Water Pollution Control Plant funding vis-a-vis the Federation of Municipalities Green Fund. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the purpose of tonight's report is to receive council's support in applying for funding for the FCM Green Municipal Fund. The plant is in its final design stage, and we are looking to proceed with tendering early in 2022, budget approval dependent. This opportunity is for a $10 million low-interest loan with a 15% grant, which has been identified, and we are looking for council's support. $10 million is just a portion of the estimated plant expansion, and we will continue to look for grant opportunities and for other sources of funding other than development charges and debentures. The plant expansion process started over 5 years ago. It's estimated to be just over $40 million. This expansion includes updated treatment technology while expanding for population growth, including equalization tanks for wet weather events, septage receiving, and additional digester space. The correctional facility has been added to the design, and all additions for construction and design costs will be covered by the ministry. In consultation with the Treasury Department and staff from FCM, the Public Works Department staff submitted an initial review application in August of 2021. Based on this application, the FCM has invited the municipality to submit a full application for consideration. As such, Council's support is a requirement of the application process. That completes my report.
Thank you, Ms. Dunlop. And to be clear, the long, I think, awaited plans to, I think, double the capacity, if I'm not mistaken, at the water pollution plant have been in play for a number of years now. The correctional facility, the future correctional facility, is not the catalyst for the expansion of the plant. So if you could just provide that context for anyone who may be new to this discussion, I think that would be helpful.
That is absolutely correct. The municipality has been considering expansion, not a full twinning, of the wastewater treatment plant for many years. There's many environmental steps that must be completed prior to getting to this step, which is the design. But you were right. The correctional facility is not the catalyst of this. The growth of the serviced area of North Granville is. We are accommodating some additional design work and construction costs, which will be at their dime, not on the backs of the intended process.
So the Ministry of Solicitor General, for any anticipated capacity they would need, is paying for both the engineering work, and they would pay for whatever capacity they would require at the sewage treatment plant. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And then I understand, because when we were first elected, we had this conversation. I think staff brought this to our attention back in 2018 and flagged that the Ministry of the Environment had already indicated to the municipality that we were getting very close to what they considered maximum capacity, with a little bit of room there. Where are we at in terms of capacity at the existing plant, which I understand is 25 years old, more or less? Is that right?
The plant was originally commissioned in 1993, so yes, it is getting up there in age. We are operating at a little over between 60 and 65% operational capacity. But it's the commitment of capacity that is the flag. Every year, the department is required to submit to the Ministry of the Environment a commitment chart. And what that says is, if we were running with everyone that is available out there from a planning perspective, what percentage of the plant we would be at. And we'd be at over 85, which triggers the process with which we've gone through in the last few years.
And when we talk about building, we're talking about residential and commercial entities, effectively, that would draw on the plant if they're being built in a service area. Is that right?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And really, the future correctional facility is sort of the latecomer to this game, if you will, because many of the engineering plans were already in play, if I'm not mistaken, because I know through previous budget processes we've been funding, right, that engineering work to get you close to a tender. Is that
That is
have
correct.
I stated that correctly?
You have absolutely said it correctly, Your Worship. In regards to the design and tender, we were just about ready to go out. We have gone back to, taken a step back to relook at the, as funded by Solgen, for incorporating the requirements of the correctional facility.
Okay, excellent. And you would expect a tender to be forthcoming at this point, likely in the new year, is that right?
We're anticipating March or April.
Okay. And just one other question. Some may ask, how is this being financed, not just through the grant process, but whatever is remaining? Again, I think staff made it very clear early in our mandate that the costing for the additional capacity in the plant, apart from what the correctional facility would be using, is coming from the users of water and sewer in the municipality, as well as any other grants that can be secured.
Plant expansion is funded through development charges. Although we don't have enough development charges in the bank, we look for these grant programs, we look for alternatives for funding, as well as utilizing debentures. So it is paid through the growth component of development charges for water and sewer services.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and development charges would be key there. So for every house or commercial entity that's built, the builder pays a development charge that goes into a bit of a reserve to underwrite the expenses attached to future infrastructure.
Yes.
Have I explained that right for anyone who doesn't know what a development charge is? Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, I think I'll leave it there. Are there any other questions required here? Councillor Barclay, go ahead.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Mayor, to Director Dunlop. So in 2015, the Stantec report priced the expansion of the water pollution control plant close to $20 million. And now we're talking about a price tag of close to $40 million. So hopefully 10 million comes from the Green Fund that we're applying for, with what interest, not with a discount of 15%? Yep. And the rest is coming from future DCs and current DC reserve fund, as well as other sources. Do you have a rough breakdown? And first of all, what explains the discrepancy between $20 million 6 years ago and $40 million now? I understand that SolGen, the correctional facility, has increased costs, but what are the other inflationary aspects?
Through you, Your Worship. In 2015, we completed the Stantec Master Planning document, which identified growth components and upgrade components for the water and wastewater system. They identified $20 million as the wastewater treatment plant, but a couple of the other components identified was the equalization facility, as well as phosphorus offsetting and the ESR, so the background documents. They total a little over $29 million. The value that has been attributed to SolGen is in excess of $10 million. So there's basically the difference. We're looking at probably in the range of $13 to $14 million as a component from the Solicitor Generals as the bump up for their component. So the inflationary has actually gone down since the original 2015 based on technology changes, as well as the anticipation of, rather than going to an open lagoon style equalization, we're actually going to a tank style. So something similar to what you've seen in a lot of our water facilities, we have the tank style. So we've changed technologies, footprints, layouts, et cetera, to try to keep to that 2015 or below those dollar values from the pre-SolGen design.
So the current price tag, I know it still hasn't solidified, 44 million?
The current, through you, Your Worship, the current price tag is estimated just under $40 million, which includes the SolGen component of over what we're anticipating at this point in time, tender specific, of about $13 million.
A final question, if I could? Yeah. So the expansion includes septage receiving, and I know there's a business case that was sketched out a while ago. I wondered what kind of revenue we could anticipate to offset the cost of that feature. Do we have anything current?
We do, actually, through you, Your Worship. The capital cost, including contingencies for the septage, has dropped substantially from the original 2015, which is a large part of that component, to $408,000, with an operational cost of $141,000. Now, depending on what council picks as the revenue component per cubic meter as comparative to our neighbors, Brockville being one receiving station, the City of Ottawa being the other, they have three different scenarios: a 12, a 14, and a 16 cubic meter revenue. Brockville currently is 12. The City of Ottawa, with outside the limits, is actually $29.81 per cubic meter. So we are looking at those scenarios, and we would anticipate anywhere between $179,000 at the low end to $251,000 on the higher end of the revenue. So we will be taking a look at those specific dollar values when we come back with council for the fees and charges under the septage receiving center.
Just to clarify, we're looking at $179,000 to $251,000 as revenue on an annual basis?
That is correct.
Yeah. So the operational costs are $141,000, so that more than any scenario more than covers the operation of the septage, plus pays down some of the capital cost.
That is correct. Yes,
Great.
that is correct.
Thanks.
Good. And if I can just go back a second, because we've talked about development charges being a significant component of how the plant will be financed. We've talked about the correctional facility component, or I should say the Ministry of the Solicitor General's component for the anticipated needs of the future correctional facility. And just to go back to user fees, can you clarify for me? I happen to be on town water and sewer, so part of what I pay, of course, is to recover the costs of what I use, but is there also a portion of that that is set aside for future upgrades to the treatment plant?
The user fees are utilized for the assets of the existing infrastructure.
Okay.
They would not be used for growth components. If there's anything within the wastewater treatment plant that can be attributed to existing benefit to users, then user fees can be utilized. Otherwise, it is a growth component, and we look to development charges and other sources.
So to that end, at this point, taxpayers, whether they're rural or urban, are in fact not financing the expansion of the plant. It really is exclusive to development charges, possible grants, and of course, in the case of the future correctional facility, the ministry is paying for what they will need.
That is the intended funding program.
Okay, excellent. Deputy Mayor.
Through you, Madam Director. Karen, could you give us a bit of a timeline on the, like an estimate anyways, an idea of the timeline on the build for this and the completion? And also, are we building in for your processes or planning future development of this particular facility? I know we really didn't have something in place we were kind of caught off guard for this, the growth. And we were we're running out of capacity pretty quickly, so we were kind of scrambling. Are we anticipating future planning for expansion, timelines, things like that, so we're not caught off guard again?
Through you, Your Worship. The program in regards to the expansion of the plant takes into consideration future growth, absolutely. The way that the design is an extra treatment train. So currently, I'm going to throw out some numbers. So currently our treatment train is 4,510 cubic meters per day. The treatment train can accommodate 50% of that, the next step up. But we won't get that day one because that is not what is required for growth. So absolutely future growth is written in, and it will be available through other desktop exercises, such as stress tests from an engineering standpoint, but then in reality. There's also the consideration of the outfall, and that would be the next step. So we are considering future growth. We'll have one step now, but we have two other steps that we will be able to take in the short term and anticipate that growth for the next 30 years.
And the anticipated timeline to build this?
Sorry about that, through your worship. We are anticipating once tender and mobilization, 24 months.
And the existing facility continues to function until it doesn't. Is that right? Like the existing facility will not be decommissioned anytime soon, or what's the end of its lifespan, if you will?
Basically, the technology that the current plant is and the footprint of the current plant will be incorporated into the new design. So we're not looking at decommissioning any of it, reutilizing it, revitalizing it, changing its function. We have 2 tanks in a specific location that are designed for a specific treatment train right now. We will change that over to a different treatment train, so they will still be used. So the tanks as they sit right now, you will not see a change in that footprint. You will see expanded additional, as well as spaced out in such a way that we can accommodate that next 30 years worth of growth. You will see an additional digester. You will see in the field off to the one side, just to the west of the existing plant, you will see some additional tankage, some digester processes, and dewatering processes, as well as the equalization storage. So no, it's not being decommissioned, it's being reused in a different light. The other is we're putting in smell attenuation. We're going to be putting in a enclosed area, whereas an open tank right now, which we have had some smell complaints over the years, so we will be able to better incorporate that and scrub them rather than having an open tank.
Excellent. Sounds very prudent. So thank you for that, because we all, I think, have heard those occasional complaints, not pervasive, but certainly occasional, about odor. Okay, council colleagues, anything over here? No, we're good. Okay, appreciate that, Director Dunlop. I know it's been a long time coming. Certainly was brought to our attention very quickly after we were elected. So we're pleased that things are proceeding and that you feel confident that things are coming together. So the motion is that council approve and enact bylaw 1/2021 to authorize the expenditure of $39,390,000, being the estimated capital cost of the Granville Water Pollution Control Plant expansion, to be offset, we want to be clear, by any third-party funding sources. Among other funding sources that we've discussed this evening, authorize the Director of Public Works to apply for and enter into the $10 million low-interest loan with the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Green Municipal Fund, and a grant for 15% of the loan for the Granville Water Pollution Control Plant expansion, and direct staff to report back with the details of the FCM Green Municipal Fund loan and grant at a later date. Who would like to move this, please? Thank you, Councillor Barkley. A seconder. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. All right, I will call the question unless there are further comments. Seeing none, all in favor? Good. Thank you, and that carries. And Director Dunlop, I know I've discussed that with staff, but anything we can do to demystify what is a considerable, obviously, investment on behalf of the community is always appreciated. So thank you for answering our questions, and we look forward to providing more information to the community as needed. Okay, colleagues, I think we are nearing the end of our open agenda. We do not have Parks and Rec or Emergency and Protective Services on the agenda tonight. No correspondence detailed or featured here. I don't see other business. I'll look to notice of motions. Colleagues, any notice of motions of which I am unaware? Seeing none. The introduction and consideration of bylaws, I believe, has been completed. And I'll look to Ms. Workman. Anything from members of the media or our community via email?
I can confirm we've received nothing.
Okay. I have heard from local media that they really appreciate being able to stream the meetings at home, especially on YouTube. So carry on as long as they get what they need from these meetings. That's excellent. So I'll now ask for a motion, maybe on this side of the House, Councillors O'Sullivan and Strachan, that Council go into a closed session for matters that relate to negotiations, advisory committees, and subcommittees, as well as previous meeting minutes. Anyone want to move and second that, please? Thank you. Councillor Strachan. Councillor Sullivan. Thank you. Any comments, colleagues, on going into